Alright, so this is going to be a lesson on special angle pairs. And an example of what this looks like is if you have two parallel lines. So these are parallel, we sometimes mark them like this to mean that they're parallel. And you cut them with what's called a transversal. So let's go ahead and mark these parallel lines here and here, and this line that cuts across is called a transversal. Transversal comes from the word, well, there's a couple of words, but trans meaning across, and versal, which has to do with like movement. So this is like moving across the parallel lines. So when we form angles this way, right, you can see here's an angle, here's an angle, here's an angle, here's an angle, and then there's four more over here. When you form angles in this way, they actually relate to each other in special ways. In particular, every angle is either going to be equal to one of these other ones, or it'll be what's called supplementary. So we talked about complementary and supplementary just a little bit last time, so we'll do a quick refresher here. So let's keep the big picture clear. What we're trying to get at is, how is it that, for example, this angle, this one right here, how is it that that one relates to this angle right here, or this one? How is it that this angle relates to this one and this one? Are they equal? Are they supplementary? Are they complementary? That's what we're going to try to tackle today. So, quick refresher, supplementary it means that two angles that add up to 180 degrees. So in particular, if you've got a straight line and you have an angle like this, of course I could have drawn it anyway, it could have been going this way or whichever way, this angle and this angle need to add up to 180. So if this was angle A, this was angle B, you would say A plus B equals 180. In particular, if this angle was, for example, 40 degrees, so if A was 40, we didn't know what B was, but they lay along a straight line, we'd know that B was equal to 140, either by solving this equation or just really by thinking about it, right? If the whole thing adds up to 180 and this one's 40, then B must be what's left. Okay, so let's then talk about these special angle pairs. So here are my parallel lines. Doesn't matter which way you draw the arrows, you could have drawn them both going the other way, it's fine. And let's just suppose that I told you what one of these angles was. For example, this one. Let's say that I told you it was 110 degrees. Let's see if we can figure out what the rest of these angles are. And it turns out, knowing that these are parallel and that this is a straight line, we can figure out every single other one. So as we find these angles, I'm going to introduce you to the new terms, and then at the end I'll give you the way that I remember how it is that I remember which relationships are called what and whether or not they're equal or they're supplementary. So first of all, this for me was always the easiest one. If this is 110, we know that this is also 110. Okay, because if you look at it, this is what I also tell my students. If you can imagine there's an X formed in this way, right? As you kind of move this segment up or down, you can imagine that it's going to be changing these two segments in an equal way. There is like a proof for this using supplementary angles, but truthfully, I think looking at two angles formed this way, it's obvious that these two are going to be equal to each other, and they will not necessarily be equal to these ones, but the ones that lie across from each other will be equal. These are called vertical angles. So let's say I've got this one, this angle, and this angle. These are called vertical angles. The only other one that you absolutely need to know in order to recover all the information about these is called corresponding angles. So corresponding angles are this angle and this one. So this one. These ones are also equal. And the way I like to think about this one, so if this is 110, this is also 110. I'm telling you this is also 110. The reason for that is this. You can imagine if I moved these two lines very close together, these two angles, so as I start shifting this line up and up, you can imagine that this angle is going to be moving along the line like this. Right? If I drew a line that was right here, my angle would be now a little bit higher than it was. Now, if I move these parallel lines all the way so that they were right on top of one another, this angle and this angle would literally be the same angle. Which for me is just an intuitive way of saying, well, if at one point they were the same angle and all you did was move where the line was, right, move where this parallel line was, then it should be that the angles remain equal. So if you've got this here, these are called corresponding. Okay, so likewise, just so we're clear, it's not just the middle right and the bottom right, right? This angle and this angle are also corresponding, or this angle and this angle are also corresponding. It basically just means one of them, like they're on the same side of this transversal, right? They're both on the right. One of them's on the inside, one of them's on the outside. Okay, now looking at this diagram, you can see that this one will also be 110 because they're vertical. Now the only other thing left to do really is to look at these angles. Now it turns out all of these angles are going to be what's left if you take 110 out of 180, because look, this angle and this angle together, they form a straight line. So that means this one is going to need to be 70, since 110 plus 70 equals 180, or a straight line. So this one will be 70, this one will be 70. Since these two are corresponding angles, this one will be 70, and same here. So what I'll actually do, just so that the video doesn't go overly long, I'll leave you with this. This is a kind of functional level understanding. What you would see on a test or on your EOI would be they would give you one of these angles and they would ask about one which is far away, or they would say if you have this angle, which one is equal to it, and they'd give you a bunch of options, some of which are not equal, some of which are equal. And in the next video I'll tell you how to tackle remembering these different angle relationships if you don't want to write out the whole thing. I'll see you then.